This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard but didn't. Americans working harder or less. The White House seeking informants while tracking you on the web. Hunger hits Detroit middle class hard. America stepping on the accelerator towards the proverbial financial cliff. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, August 23rd, 2009. A quick note before we begin. ICN will not post a broadcast next week, so check back in 2 weeks for our next weekly report. Congratulations, you no longer have to work for the government, at least for this year. Americans had to work from January 1st until August 12th this year, just to cover the cost of government. The August 12th date is 26 days later than last year, when it fell on July 16th. In fact, this is the first time the day has fallen in August. Until this year, July 20th was the latest date, and that was way back in 1982. Calculated by the group Americans for Tax Reform, the Cost of Government Day takes into account all taxes paid to all levels of government, as well as the cost of complying with all federal, state, and local government regulations. In 2009, they claim the cost of government will consume 61% of national income. Ever feel like you're working harder for less? You're right. The Labor Department said that the American workforce produced 6.4% more this year compared to a year ago. At the same time, the amount employers paid for all that extra work fell by 5.8%. Despite deep job cuts over the past year, workers who remain on the payroll are filling in and making up the work that had been done by their departed colleagues. In some cases, that extra work came with a smaller paycheck. In a seemingly unprecedented move, the White House is asking Americans to report on each other. As part of selling their health care proposal and controlling the debate, the administration is requesting supporters to monitor the web and casual conversations. The White House website reads, "Since we can't keep track of all of them here at the White House, we're asking for your help. If you get an email or see something on the web about health insurance reform that seems fishy, send it to flag@whitehouse.gov. Previous administrations had pledged to not overtly track or monitor individual Americans' political debate. Obama's team is asking you to monitor your fellow citizens for them." According to the Washington Post, the Obama administration is proposing to scale back a long-standing ban on tracking how people use government internet sites with cookies and other technologies, raising alarms among privacy groups. The current prohibition in place since 2000 can be waived if an agency head cites a compelling need. Citing the terms of a February 19th contract with Google, in which an unnamed federal agency explicitly carved out an exemption from the ban so that the agency could use Google's YouTube video player. That means that a visitor to whitehouse.gov, for example, isn't tracked by the government, but information about a user who clicks on a YouTube video on the site could be tracked by Google. After being caught in January using tracking technology, the White House and Google reassured users that they have stopped collecting data. David Hendrick of Camas, Washington, had a chance to address his congressman, and boy, did he give his rep an earful. Take a look.
Yes, my name is David, and I'm from Camas, Washington.
Hi, David.
And but first of all, I want to let everybody know, since this is the thing tonight, that I'm a Marine Corps vet.
Thank you, David.
And like you, I did swear an oath to defend my Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
Now, I heard you say tonight about educating our children, indoctrinating our children, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I didn't say indoctrinating, my friend. I never said.
Stay away from my kids. I also heard you say that you're going to let us keep our health insurance. Well, thank you. It's not your right to decide whether or not I keep my current plan or not. That's my decision. Now, I've heard recently in the media, you and some other people on the national political stage call us brown shirts because we oppose it.
No, I did not. What I said was, and I've apologized for it.
Okay, well, thanks for apologizing, but I won't speak to you, then I'll speak to others. But I'll remind you, a little history lesson. The Nazis were the National Socialist Party. They were leftist. They took over the finance. They took over the car industry. They took over healthcare in that country. If Nancy Pelosi wants to find a swastika, maybe the first place she should look is the sleeve of her own arm. Now, what I want to know is, you've done a lot of things that violate your constitutional oath, as you know. What I want to know is, as a Marine, as a disabled veteran that served this country, I have kept my oath. Do you ever intend to keep yours?
Yes, I do.
Some try to write off the seething anger that Americans have directed at their representatives recently is that of isolated fringe groups. Even to the casual observer, there is a bubbling animosity toward Washington. Much like David Henrich's list of grievances, the common theme of these dress downs is that it was the government that drove the country to $12 trillion in debt, bankrupted almost every government program, and in so doing is driving this once great country into the trash heap of history. With the government's track record, it is no wonder many question its ability to fix anything as complicated as health care. Two announcements the government just made this week are a clear indicator that the country is in deep financial trouble. The first was that the Social Security Administration will not be giving any cost of living increases over the next 2 years. This is the typical first step in dealing with an underfunded program. If this doesn't help, and it won't, as Social Security faces a mountain of liabilities, the next step will be to cut benefits. At the same time that retired people have grown dependent on Social Security income, the government is inflating the currency like never before while freezing benefits. The second announcement by the government this week was that the projected deficit over the next 9 years was raised from $7 trillion to $9 trillion. Back in 1998, it was claimed that budget surpluses would last as far as the eye could see. In 2003, with 2 wars and the economy faltering, the projected debt would only grow modestly. With budget projections from 10 years ago, they were way off the mark. That likely means that Obama's projections of $21 trillion in debt will actually turn out to be $30 or $40 trillion in debt. Americans will have to adjust their standard of living expectations, as the piper will have to be paid. As Detroit's economy worsens, unemployment was over 16% in July. Food stamp applications and pantry visits have surged. There isn't a single major retail chain supermarket in the city, forcing residents to buy food from corner stores or discount chains, often less healthy, less varied, or more expensive food. Huge amounts of vacant land has led to a resurgence in urban farming. Volunteers at local food pantries have also increased. What makes this recession different is the type of people getting food assistance. It's no longer just the homeless or the really poor. Now it's middle-class folks who lost their $60,000 a year job, or homeowners who got caught on the wrong side of the real estate bubble. Detroit led America's growth 50 years ago and is leading the way in its demise. How long before your city looks like Detroit? In a follow-up from a story a few weeks ago, last Friday, a federal jury found Las Vegas businessman Robert Carey guilty of all 57 felony counts of evading taxes, failing to withhold taxes from workers' wages, and engaging in fraud in real estate transactions. Carey used the face value of gold and silver coins to pay his employees, to avoid taxes that would otherwise be required to be paid if he used Federal Reserve notes. Carey defended his transactions as legal because the U.S. Mint states that the stamped dollar amount of these gold and silver coins represents the legal tender value. Just like the Federal Reserve notes are worth 3 cents in paper material, but what's important is the denomination inscribed on the bill. It took the government 2 trials to finally convict Mr. Carey. He faces 296 years in federal prison for doing what the government does every day. Thank you for joining ICN this week. Just a reminder, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Americans need to be informed, so please send our link to your friends and family. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, have a great week.